Hi, how are you? You have an ID?
I don't want to give it to you. Why do I have to?
Because my attorney said not to.
Why do I have to give it to you? This is evidence. She's under arrest. I have to go with. I have to go. I have to go.
You don't have that choice.
Let me help you out.
No, I have to stay. Please don't do this. Don't stay. You need to grab the bags. Take the bags. Yeah, and you need to wait outside. Okay.
My husband's almost 80 years old. He can't
Yeah,
come
I
with
can't.
me.
Please, can I go?
No, you can't join me there.
Oh, don't do this, please.
Please.
Oh,
Someone's
God.
got to help him get home. This is terrible. You can't do this. This is insane.
Hold on to that for me.
Is that okay with you?
Please. You don't have to have the handcuffs on her. She's not going anywhere. Please. Please.
You have anything in your pocket?
No, no.
Do you have anything of value in you?
No, I
Plus you have a necklace on. You
Wanna
can
go?
take the
My-
necklace
I'll
off.
take
Yeah, take it off. Yeah.
And the earrings.
And the earrings, the
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record. Okay. How is everybody? Going to talk to you today about Donna Adelson and her most recent jailhouse blow up tantrum and speculate. I'm going to do a little speculating, guys. If this gives us a hint as to what her trial strategy is going to be. So let me get into it. This comes from Fancy Fiction. I found it on her community tab. The link is in the description of this episode. So Unit 5 inmate Adelson approached the officer's station and asked if she could have a chair at the phones while she used the phone. This officer advised her that she could not due to the fairness of everyone. Inmate Adelson, don't you love that, Inmate Adelson? She's the second Inmate Adelson after her son, Charlie, became upset and stated that, okay, wait, we got to do it in the Donna voice, right? That's just fine. I'll just let my lawyer know that you won't let me have a chair. Sergeant Blakely, 175, was notified. So she was without a chair. I love that Fancy Fiction. She suffered with no chair for 8 minutes. So she put she figured out what call this was. And she was on an 8-minute call. So we've seen a lot of other famous older people, richer, what we call rich people on trial, arriving at court with all sort of really highlighting their ailments. Here's Bill Cosby arriving for court. He had to have a seeing eye person escort him, because actually 2 seeing eye people to help him get to court. Became blinder and blinder. We saw, of course, Harvey Weinstein showing up for court. with a walker. Anybody remember this? He seems to walk just fine without it. When it comes to the steps, they're like, we can't really handle the steps. Like the steps would be the hardest part, right? Wouldn't they? He's like, I can handle the steps. He's even got the tennis balls on the back of it. He's like motoring in that thing with that thing. Look how fast he's going. He's not really using it to walk. He's just kind of pushing it into court. Hilarious. And then we saw, hold on one second. We saw Robert Durst shave his head. And you know what? Robert Durst had all sorts of ailments. He died very soon after being convicted. However, his trial was extremely long. So in the beginning of his trial, I think this is when it resumed after the pandemic. And obviously they still were wearing masks in this trial. He shaved his head to show is it shunt? Is it stint or shunt? I'm thinking of wait, hold on. What is it? Which is it, guys? Is it shunt or stunt? I don't know. In his head. Remember that? Showed up for court like that. So what I'm asking, Rotary is rotating his arm, talking to Dick Dugarin and Chesnoff. David Chesnoff, his attorney's there. There's his brother testifying against him. So he did that, and he admitted on a jailhouse call that he did this. So you see so that the jury could see his scar and maybe feel sorry for him. So just, if you didn't see it before, I'll show it again. There you go. So what I'm asking is, Donna, the only thing she has going for her, the evidence is so strong against her, is she setting up, because what she asked about is a chair, right? She can't stand for 8 minutes on the phone for a chair. So is she going to show up in court in a wheelchair or some other kind of device, walker, cane? Is she going to look for sympathy in the same way that Robert Durst did, Harvey Weinstein did, and Bill Cosby did, by really playing up their age and Bill Cosby, exaggerating ailments, if not creating new ailments? I feel that Harvey Weinstein, I think he could walk just fine without a walker, as you could see with him getting up the stairs. So is this going to happen in this trial? Is this one of her strategies? I think it's very interesting. So close, a month away from her trial, that we're hearing about. This was August 20th. We're hearing about her asking for a chair. She can't stand 8 minutes. Is she going to be wheeled into court? That's what I'm asking. Because what else does she have? I mean, we can talk about her son's strategy and just piggybacking on top of that, meaning taking her son's strategy of saying, well, I was extorted, and Donna was saying, well, my son was extorted. But then she's got to answer for this phone call. This is what I'm thinking. These are the things that I'm thinking about when I'm not thinking about Ray Gunn, the Australian breakdancer. Did anybody see that? Makes me howl with laughter every time. It's like maybe one of the highlights for me of the Olympics. Hold on one second. There's this call that and I thought we'd take another listen to it today. that she's got to answer or make some kind of defense for. So if you're Rashbaum, you'll say, well, she said that she didn't know anything about it in this call. But picture this, and I don't think this will escape the jury. Picture this. You're given a note on the street by a stranger. You don't even look at it. You keep it folded in your purse. You call your son. We've heard the undercover wiretaps with her son, Charlie, talking about it. And you don't immediately go to the police. You don't immediately look at it. Instead, you just put it in never unfold it, walk home and contemplate whether it's someone really involved or if it's the police fishing until you finally conclude that it's the police fishing. So you do this how do I say this? You do this ridiculous call to the undercover where you're halfway saying I wasn't involved. And then halfway saying maybe you got the wrong person. And if you're really involved, and then if it were the real person, wouldn't you want to contact the police immediately to catch Dan Markel's killer? Why are they so uninterested in who killed Dan Markel? If I were Georgia Kappelman and Sarah Dugan, I would be hammering that home. Why no curiosity? Because the only answer is that they knew that they're the people involved. They had the answer. They knew it was involved because they did it. So let's take a listen. And in this call, she really plays up her age. This is why I wanted to play it. I'm Mrs. Adelson. I'm just with my grandkids. I'm just a kindly old grandmother. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's what she did when she got arrested, which is why I played that. My husband's almost 80 years old. He's got to come with me, use his age. We'll get into her emails in a second. So we got a lot to discuss today. Juicy day.
This is Mrs. Adelson. Is this Sanny? Sanny. Okay. My grandchildren had my phone before, so I can. I'm Mrs. Adelson.
Yes.
Yeah. My grandchildren had my phone before, so that's, and I just saw that you called.
Oh, okay. You left a message on my voicemail.
Right, I did.
Yeah.
This is my problem. You approached me on Alton Road. You handed me an article from the newspaper about my ex-son-in-law. You told me I need to call you and help your friend who was in prison. Now, at the time you did that, I didn't understand what you were talking about. I didn't call you back. Then you mailed me a threatening letter.
Right. Then you mail me a threatening letter. This is what she hasn't gone to the police. She don't go running to the police and say, I'm being extorted for a crime I didn't commit. I wasn't involved in this. I don't know why they think I'm involved in this. And the only reason you wouldn't go to the police is because you were involved in it. Donna, doesn't look good for you.
You send me a text message to my phone that says I'm not taking you seriously. So I am taking you seriously. And I really want you to listen to me. I have to tell you, I mean, this is important. I have been so stressed out. I have spoken to 10 or 12 people who are close friends of mine.
I love that. I'm so stressed out. I've talked to 10 or 12 friends of mine. You know, I invited them over for a little nosh, a little bagels and lox, and I showed them my extortion letter. And I said, what do you think of this? You think I should answer it? I mean, what is she talking about? I showed it to 10 of my friends. Hey, come over. I got a great thing to show you. I want to show you my extortion letter. Passed it around the social club at Miami after a game of tennis with some tab. I mean, what are we talking about? And she's so stressed out. Like, I know that you want $5,000, but I'm really stressed out, so back off. Ridiculous. You would be trembling in fear of this person. Instead, she's trying to take charge and in control. Bizarre.
Telling them about this and basically picking their brains and asking them what I should do, because I don't know your friend who is in jail. You mentioned a name. I don't even know his name. I never spoke to him. I don't.
My favorite part. This is my favorite part of this. Your friend's name. I don't even know him. I don't even know this Tuto, Tato, Hoo-Ho. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't even know his name. I never spoke to him. I don't know what he looks like. I've never met him. I'm sorry your friend's in jail, but I don't know what that has to do with me.
You know exactly what it has to do with. You know exactly what. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me. You just got to listen to me.
You need to ask your friend who this person looks like, what their name is, something, because I know there's a big reward out there. And
you could be extorting the wrong woman. I could be the wrong woman. There is a Donna Sheldonston, and she lives just down the road from me. She looks a lot like me, but not her. She could have killed this guy, who happens to be my ex-son-in-law, who I happen to have a whole trope full of emails written about to my daughter about get control, punish him, get your kids, make sure that they're Catholic, all that. But you could be confusing her. You could be confusing her for me. This is absurd. Go get a reward from the police. What she's saying is, I could go to the police. I could turn you in, is really what she's saying. Go to the police and trying to look like she's doing the right thing. But why didn't she go to the police immediately?
if you need money for your friends, that's the way to get it. I mean, I'm asking you nicely. I don't know who he is. I am out of the loop. It is.
Why is she being nice why is she asking nicely and being nice to people who are connected to killing her ex-son-in-law? Shouldn't she be outraged? Why is she so polite and considerate and on such a casual level with them in some ways? Do you get what I'm saying? There's a casualness. I've been talking to my friends. I'm very upset. I'm very nervous, the way you kind of talk to a friend. I mean, you never talk to a boss like this. And he keeps trying to get control, but Murder by Maestro had a great point about this. So when I first heard this, I first saw the bump, I said, well, that wasn't really a very good undercover. But if you think about it, the undercover couldn't be so good that he would really frighten Donna. And then she could say, well, I didn't call back. I didn't contact the police. I was afraid for my life. He had to be polite. It had to be in some ways a confusing performance the point was to get everybody talking. The point was not to do the performance of a lifetime, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that's an important point that we should consider when we look at the bump.
Not me. If I can help, I would help. I mean, that's what.
Just like I told you, listen to me. Just like I told you that day, we know that your family had a problem up north. We know that that problem was taken care of maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And we know that Katie has been taken care of and has been taken care of. Now my brother in jail, we were in Broward together. He told me the whole thing, and he hasn't been taken care of. You know. Now, all that's being asked for is 5K. That's all we're asking for is for 5K. And
Do you guys know the Reed technique? It's an interrogation technique. It seems like this undercover is using it a little bit, where you completely deny whatever they're telling you. Like, don't give me that. So when they try to lay a story on you, you reject it. People like Amanda Knox constantly talk about that's why she falsely blamed her boss for a crime I believe she committed. But it's often it's very effective technique, and it seems like it's a little bit what this undercover is using here. And you can see Donna kind of folding under it here.
he told me everything, and I know everything. I know who's involved. I know everything, and I'll get the 100K for myself.
You know,
All I ask is to send the 5K. Everybody knows what's going on.
I don't, you're saying everyone knows. I know I lost my ex-son-in-law. I did not have anything to do with it. That's why I said, ask him what. That's what my brother Tasso told me. He told me everything when we were in jail. He told me everything and who was involved.
Right. She says, I know my ex-son-in-law was killed. But I don't know anything about it, right? I don't know. Wouldn't you want to know something about it? Why is she so uncurious? I mean, so we always talk about why didn't she go to the police? Well, why didn't she go to the police to find out who these people were, to solve the crime? I mean, she's so money hungry. Get the money for yourself. Get a reward. I think she would take it. I really do. Of course she didn't. I mean, she's trying to negotiate here. It's ridiculous.
I know everything.
Well, I don't. That's the problem. I'm telling you, it's not me. It's not me. I have had a year of aggravation, 1.5 years of aggravation over this. My daughter, my grandchildren. It is not me.
Why has she had a year of aggravation and not a year of grief? I mean, I get it. You don't like him. But why wouldn't you say this has been really miserable for our family? My grandchildren have lost a father. If you had anything to do with this, go turn yourself in. Tell them to, you know what I mean? Tell the rest of the people to turn themselves in. Because at this point, right, it was only Luis Rivera.
And when I asked my friends, what do they think? They said, well, this person needs to get a description of you because of what you look like, or it's not me. I don't know who caused this. It wasn't me. I mean, I don't know.
I'll tell you, just like that day when I talked to you, this is not going away. This is not going to go away because Tato told me everything. He wasn't being taken care of. He needed the 5K. Spent 5K. That's all we were asking for. If don't do that.
I don't know who Tato is. You don't understand.
We know you don't know who Tato is, but you know who Katie is. And you know the contacts Katie has. Okay? You know who Katie is. And you know that Katie has somebody that knows Tato. And they took care of a problem for you people. That's just the bottom line. Katie is, you know that they took care of Katie and her people. Nobody's taking care of
Thank you, Kitties. 1993. You rock, Roberta. Hope your mom is well. Thank you. She is well. I was just texting with her today, actually.
Here of Tato, I know you don't know who Tato is.
No,
But we know who all of you are. And this ain't going away.
you know what?
So I can give you that, you want to spend the 5K?
Here's what you need to do. You need to go and...
Don't tell me what to do. I know what to do and I'm doing it.
You're looking for money. Get $100,000 or whatever whatever the reward is. It isn't me. You have got the wrong person. That's why I said ask your friends.
You're Donna Adelson.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
I love when they purposely misspell things and mispronounce names like this. I mean, this would be the end of the phone call for it. The end of the phone call would have happened pretty much 3 minutes ago for anyone else not involved.
Well, I know. We know who's involved in all this.
Yes, this is not making any sense. I mean, if you want the money, you should get it from the police. They can give you a whole lot more than you're asking me for money for someone. I can't do this. I have had too much stress and too much aggravation from this, and I don't know what you are talking about. I just don't know.
Good. I think you should talk to Katie. Talk to people that are involved in this.
Right. She would be so really confused, not fake confused. I just don't know. You'd be like, huh? What? Who's in jail? You'd be asking questions. Wait, who is in jail? Who is your friend in jail? Not, I don't know. How does he say he knows me? Wouldn't you be asking questions? But this is the thing about this family is that they never, this is my opinion. This is just my speculation. This is not a fact, but my opinion based on the evidence at hand, the wiretaps, etc., is that even without like the jailhouse calls where they know they're being taped, even if they weren't being taped, I believe that this is a family that never talks about this crime directly. They don't want to face what they've done. They all sort of talk about it in little bits, like bits and pieces here and there, but never directly. Oh, so it was Charlie's girlfriend who was the middle woman, not the way we talk about it. It was the middle woman. Then I brought my washed, moldy money, stapled money, and dropped it off with Katie. Like, it's never, no, I'm going to drop off the stuff, the things, a million euphemisms and code words. It's partially the paranoia and partially the not wanting to deal with really what they've done. If you were really confused, you'd be saying, well, how do I know this person? Okay, from who? From Katie? So Charlie's ex-girlfriend. How do I, right. And they're saying I did what? I was involved exactly how? And why did they want this money for me? You know, wouldn't you be asking those kind of questions? Not, I talked to 10 of my friends down at the tennis club, and they all think, they all told me to, I don't know, what advice did they give her? It didn't seem like they gave her much advice.
You'll know.
Except they all agreed that it wasn't her.
You know what's going on.
That's why I'm...
You can tell me. You know that? But I know you know. Because I heard, when I was locked up in Broward with my brother, he told me everything. Everything. He told me everything.
Well, then
I just wanted to take care of with her fucking Pluto.
I just think instead of asking me, you should get the money from the police. There's a lot of money out there, and
I have a better suggestion. Go to the police. Get that money for Tuto's commissary. Tato's commissary. It's a two-door Tato. Can't remember.
I know. If you think you know who this is, then go ahead and do it, because I know it isn't me. I know it isn't me. And I can't take this kind of level of stress. I just can't. I know I didn't do anything.
You talk to people, you talk to the right people, you talk to people, you make this 5K come to me. That's all I need. Just do it and get it to me. Do it and get it to me.
I'll call you
Bye.
back.
I'll call you back. I'll call you back at the end of that. And never does. Instead, it's Charlie. It's ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous. I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to look at some emails, some of Charlie's testimony, maybe a long one. Hang tough. Stay tuned. I will be right back after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We don't take a break. Grab a snack or maybe a glass of wine. Roberta will be back in no time. This podcast is listener supported, so smash that like button and subscribe, or become a patron for exclusive content if you are so inclined. Have something to say? Shoot Roberta a super chat. She will do her best to read it on air without delay. Now Roberta's back and ready to put the true back in true crime. Here's Roberta.
Okay, here we go. So, wanted to show you, I was looking at her emails. And, oh, actually, before I look at her emails, hold on one second. Cancel, pulling that up. Wanted to show you. Okay. Wanted to show you, I sent this to the great Patty of Patty's Playhouse too. And forgive me, because I pulled this off of Twitter so long ago, and I'm not sure whose tweet or see, the problem with it now being called X is that there is no word for X like tweet. So I don't know. Are we still supposed to call it a tweet or an X? I don't know what. I don't know whose tweet this was. Was this yours, Fancy Fiction? If it was, let me know. But I couldn't find it in your, at least not with these keywords. Remember when I said that Morgan Honeycutt, who showed up as Wendy Adelson's, here she is with Denise Williams right behind her. You guys remember that? She was convicted for murder for hire of her, I think it was her ex-husband. Not super familiar with that case. Tim Jansen worked out a deal for testimony with the hitman in that case, who I believe was some lover of hers. Hope I'm getting the details right. I'm not super familiar with that case. Just remembering the few things I've read about it. But Tim Jansen represented the other defendant in that case. And I believe that there is some connection between, I have to ask Tim Jansen, Honeycutt and Tim Jansen, but here she is, Morgan Honeycutt is her name. Here she is in both cases. Now we've talked about that. And let me just pull up these emails and say what I'm going to say about them. Okay. So this was interesting to me. So this is her. Like she knows so much about the law. However, gibbers in his divorce. Hold on one second. I might. Okay. Let's share this tab instead. Our point is, okay, so this is from June 27, 2013. And she's giving Wendy advice. And look how clever she is. She's telling Wendy what happened at the same time, how she should handle this. And this just gave me a thought to how she is behind the scenes in her own trial. And this is one of the reasons I think she picked Rashbaum. She picked Rashbaum because she can push him around. That's what's in my brain. Little Freudian slip there. And who would have thought after paying an attorney $600 per hour for 10 months, she would take an hour and a half of testimony, not even bother calling gibbers to the stand, and decide that family support for very young children evidently means nothing, and a job that pays 10 times what your unsecured, untenured, and dependent upon state budget cuts job pays in Tallahassee will be just fine for your children. Does she care that after expenses you'll save next to nothing at the end of the year? So she's talking about the judge and how disappointed she is with this judge. And so last time we were talking about Donna in court, and she was all smiles with the judge. And she says to you and Kristen, meaning Wendy and her attorney, haven't figured out the judge so far. So Donna figures the judge is the person in power and she's going to suck right up to him, Judge Everett in this case, who also presided over Charlie's trial. You were both shocked at the rapid decision based on nothing that was presented. So how do you think at this point you can figure out what the judge will say regarding your decision to introduce Christianity into the boys' lives? People go to prison and change their religion all the time. Well, now, Donna, you might actually get to find out for sure. People go through difficult times and find Jesus. Jesus was Jewish. He had positive teachings. And she says she's a Southern Black lady. How do you know? How do you know it won't be music to her ears to hear this? So part of the reason, and I've talked about this before, that Donna picked Christianity for Wendy to convert her children to, and not something else, because anything other than strict Judaism would have bothered Dan Markel. She wanted to get in with the judge and have Wendy suck up to the judge. And she thought it would make her divorce go smoother. I always think that's a point that's not really talked about, and I think it's pretty interesting. And in this letter, she says, "Hi, honey. Okay, just like it says on your necklace, never, never, never give up. Unless it's your son, Charlie, then give up right away and fly to a non-extradition country the next, 2 weeks after, a week after? It was a week after. Get that emergency visa and flee. It's time for action. It's time to take control of your life and not let gibbers think he's just won anything by having you remain in Tallahassee, 8 hours away from the only family you have, and lose out on what will be a job that will afford you and your children advantages that they will never otherwise be able to enjoy. Let's show this effer what will make him absolutely miserable. You know his weak points: money, religion, control." Those are all Donna's weak points. it's really money and control. I put religion. Religion's important in as far as status is concerned for her daughter. She picked out Dan Markel on JDate with Wendy, a Jewish dating online app. So, but money and control, that's Donna money and control. You have 5 weeks before your court date. I know you have a job that keeps you very busy. However, the rest of your life, and consequently Dad's, mine, and yes, even Charlie's, will be affected by how well you can perform act before July 31st. Isn't it interesting that, when was this written? A year later, before July, acting before July 31st, right? 2014 would mean getting over on the cops. You can be a very good actress when you want to. I've seen you in action. You need to put on the performance of your life. And is that what Donna's thinking about now, putting on the performance of her life? These are her strategies. She schemes. She has a criminal mind and a very lawyerly mind, by the way. You can see her thinking up. I mean, if you go through these, and I won't go through all of them, but if you go through her, I mean, she goes through the just different points in the law and possible loopholes. And at one point she says she wants, if she doesn't get something in court, then she has to get extra days for her Christian holidays. I mean, it's so absurd. I mean, yeah, here's the one. This is the one where she really goes through it. Look at this. I mean, your divorce is non-negotiable. So she goes through every part of Dan Markel's filing and makes a legal answer for it. So I would think the most important part of your divorce is relocation. I sincerely hope your attorney understands that it is your non-negotiable. Lots of things are negotiable. Not with the Adelson family. Almost nothing is negotiable with the Adelsons. It's their way or the highway. That's the one thing that you cannot let her think, okay, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. She needs to hear from you how serious you are about this and how it will benefit the children. With a close-knit family support system, I know some people hate my Donna imitation, I am mindful, as well as your significantly better paying job with hours more flexible with your current job so that you can spend significantly more time with your children, which requires teaching hours, office hours, court appearances, meetings with med school people, and multiple trips away from home. Those trips need to be coordinated with a very angry man, says the very angry grandmother, who will not be cooperative with you in this regard. For example, this past weekend, you had your annual conference for blank at the same time his regular NYU crap was taking place. He didn't say, I go to NYU every month and this is your annual meeting. I'll stay with the children and you go. Of course not. Danny thinks he's a very important person. And as always, he and his needs come first. So without your parents as your backup, one of you would have to stay home with the children. Your attorney needs to understand that your mother worked full-time in the family's dental practice until September, when she felt she was needed by you for the well-being of the children to get them through this transitional time with people who love them and see them frequently with a great share of affection. I mean, it goes on. Brief background. This is a no-fault divorce state, so this nonsense about no marital infidelity or abuse doesn't matter. However, a hot temper and verbal abuse is what you need to emphasize, that you suffered under his quote-unquote reign. Narcissistic personality disorder causes major problems in a marriage. Well, if Dan Markel had it, he was also married to one. and a psychopath to boot, in my opinion. Especially when one believes that because he attended Harvard undergrad and Harvard law, he's clearly better and smarter than anyone else, including you. Only an idiot like him would write that he should be the only one consulted. See, I don't think that he wrote, I'm the only one consulted. I think he said, I should be consulted because he's the father on issues of health, education, and religion of the children, which clearly as a father, you should be consulted. But he's the only one. I mean, did Dan Markel know he was marrying Donna Adelson? That's the question I'd want to ask him. Unfortunately, I can't. But you marry the family. And that's what I say about this family. They're a four-headed monster. So I just wonder if she's doing this kind of like looking at the emotions and doing these kind of like really detailed arguments. I don't think she did the smaller courtroom. I think that comes from Dan Rashbaum, totally, who watched the Karen Reed trial, who wants to be a big time defense lawyer with big public cases. I mean, look at him. Well, so the next thing I want to show you, actually, before I do that, let me just show you. I got a great comment. I think there is one major point testifying that says it all. I got this through Facebook chat. I can't remember when, but Georgia asks him, Facebook Messenger, sorry. I think there is one point in him, this means Charlie, testifying that says it all. I can't remember when, but Georgia asks him, does Donna have a favorite child or something like that? He says, I don't think she likes my older brother very much. That was the greatest moment in his life. He got to announce and condemn his brother, who was smarter and more successful in his personal life, in court, in public. Who does that? Any normal person says there's no such thing, right, as the favorite child. But he got off on saying it. And Psycho Donna got off on having a Playboy son living in denial that Charlie is a loser and has issues. When she heard he lied to the cops that pulled him over, saying he was an ER doc, she laughed like, isn't he cute and charming? How wonderful he is breaking the law and lying. I'm sure Charlie said to Donna first, I can fix this. Yeah, I thought that was a great comment. And then Donna got gung-ho about this and worked out the plan and the details. Wendy came and complained and complained and complained and put the problem in Donna's lap and knew what was going to happen if she put the problem in Donna's lap. Donna was going to fix it. She's a fix-it. She's a coordinator. So thought we'd watch some of Harley Adelson's. Oh, wait. Sorry. Pulled up the wrong thing. Excuse me. His testimony. You can see Dan Rashbaum at the podium, like, so excited. I'm in a high-profile trial. Look at me. He has this kind of look while he's doing it. But I thought we'd watch some of Charlie Adelson, and this will be some of Donna's defense. So let's take a listen. I know I played his cross, but his direct is really where he lays it out.
it's ready to call its next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. We call Charlie Adelson.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do, sir.
You may take your seat. Please speak loudly and clearly.
Tammy's got the cutest cat. I've seen the pictures on Twitter or X.
Charlie, let's start with the most important question. Did you cause the death of Professor Dan Markel?
Absolutely no.
Did you hire anyone to kill him?
No.
Did you put any letters in any diaper bags of Katie Magbanoa to have Professor Markel killed?
No.
Before we get there, let's spend some time on your background. How old are you?
I'm 47 years old.
I would really love to know more about Dan Rashbaum's experience. Have anybody's researched this? He said he was a prosecutor. I can't find anything about it. If anybody knows more about his actual legal career, it's one thing that STS kind of like just glossed through. He said, I was a prosecutor, but didn't really go into any detail. He comes off as, to my eye, is very stiff up there, but let me know what you...
Where were you raised?
I was raised in Coral Springs, Florida.
When were you arrested in this case?
I was arrested April 21st, 2022.
And by the way, how do you feel right now?
I'm really nervous.
Why are you nervous?
My whole life depends on it.
Where have you been living since you were arrested a year and a half ago?
Leon County Jail.
Growing up, what was your family like?
It was pretty normal. I was the middle of 3 children. My dad was a dentist. My mom was a school teacher. Played a lot of sports. Pretty normal upbringing.
Do you have a brother and a sister?
Is that something that they're going to really exploit in Donna's trial? This school teacher. Didn't she only teach, and wasn't it something like kindergarten or second grade? First, I thought it was kindergarten for a short time. And was a substitute teacher, I thought. Am I wrong on this? This is my memory. I'm a little rusty on this case. Let me know in the comments. It's my memory, but I thought it was for a short time. And then she started working for the dental practice because do I still have those pictures of them? No, I used to have all the the great dental practice pictures. Maybe I'll send them. But here's Donna as her yearbook photo. Yeah, are they going to say this school teacher couldn't have done it? This poor school teacher. She taught kindergarten after birth of her children, occasionally substitution. Thank you. Only substitute. Thank you. That was my memory. Thank you, Doris. Thank you, guys. It's coming back to me bit by bit. But I mean, is that what they're going to say? The school teacher taught children how to play with blocks. She would never plan a murder. She knows nothing about murder. Only Play-Doh and nap time and school books. Why would he say she worked for the business? Why wouldn't she say she's a domestic coordinator? Even her favorite line. But he thinks it's going to be more preferential to the jury to say that she's a school teacher. Interesting.
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
How close were you with your siblings growing up?
My brother, I wasn't real close with. My sister, I wasn't really that close with either, probably until I got into high school. And we were probably closer in age and had more in common. And then I got closer to her as the years went on.
Your family growing up, would you describe it? How would you describe it financially?
I'd say it was upper middle class. And then in 92, my dad lost a lot of money. And then wasn't upper middle class after that. And then my dad worked hard and he worked until he was 78.
Right. You can watch my episode on the Ponzi scheme that the Adelsons lost their money in. If you're interested, I did a whole episode on that.
They retired.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to public school in Coral Springs. I attended Taravella High School.
Was school easy for you?
Not really. I mean, I had to work really hard to get good grades, and I really didn't get good grades until I went to college.
Where did you go to college?
I went to UCF in Orlando.
And after graduating from college, what did you do next?
I went to dental school.
Where did you go to dental school?
I went to dental school at Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale.
After dental school, what did you do?
I did a residency in periodontics, and I did that at Nova Southeastern also.
Briefly, what is periodontics?
Periodontics is the surgery of the gums and bone, and it's 3 more years after dental school.
During your residency, did you work?
I did. I'd moonlight and I'd work nights and weekends as a general dentist.
When your residency ended, what was your financial situation?
I had about $200,000 in student loans.
Now, after graduating from your residency, what did you decide you were going to do?
I started basically moonlighting when I was in dental school. And then when I got out, I really didn't have money to start a business. So I started working for just individual dentists where I'd come in and do the surgery for them in-house. So they wouldn't have to send the work out, but the patients could still be seen by a specialist. So I'd travel from office to office.
When you started,
Doesn't he look like someone who's like trying to get a test correct to answer all the questions correctly? So speaking of his parents' dental practice, here's Donna. I believe Murder by Maestro got me these pictures. And there's Donna in her scrubs. Everybody's in the scrubs behind the, kind of unnecessary, right? A little odd if you're just answering phones, but everybody had to wear them apparently, even the people behind the desk. I mean, she wasn't a dental technician. Isn't that odd? People at my dentist don't wear scrubs who answer the phones. But look, they all had to wear scrubs. It's so Donna. It's such a, basically, in my opinion, a kind of con artist, criminal mind kind of thing to do. Well, have them think that they're all doctors if we all sort of are technicians or nurses or dental hygienists or have extra credentials if we wear the uniform. And here's from a dental function where they're all in black Very different looking Charlie there, Harvey in the middle.
I think, when did you graduate your residency?
Graduated my residency in 2006.
When you started, how many offices did you travel to?
When I first started, it was just the first office that I was moonlighting in when I was in my residency. And then through an assistant that worked there, she introduced me to a couple offices, and then those offices introduced me to more people, and it grew from there. By the end of the first year, I was probably working in, I would say, 6 or 8 offices.
By the time...
That's interesting. I'm getting comments that people say that that's not what happens, that people are wearing scrubs in all offices. Very different in New York City. I don't think you ever see it. If you're wearing scrubs, then you have some kind of medical position. Like, but people who answer their phone are not in scrubs. Whether you go to a hospital or wherever you are. There's a clear delineation between the people at the front and the people in the back in dress. Interesting.
Frame of 2014, when Professor Markel was murdered, how many offices were you working in, approximately?
Between 30 and 35 offices I would come in to.
When you graduated, where did you live?
When I graduated Parrino, I lived in an apartment across the street from school, and then I bought my house. I still lived in 16 years or 20 years later after that.
And that house is where?
On Whale Harbor. I moved in there in 2006.
Now, during this time frame of 2014, can you describe for the jury how far you would travel? In other words, how far were the offices apart from one another?
I never turned any work down. So I had an office as far south as Cutler Ridge, which is a little bit north of Homestead. It's a good hour and a half south of Fort Lauderdale. And then my furthest office I went to north was in Eastport, St. Lucie, which is a good hour and 45 minutes north of Fort Lauderdale.
Port St. Lucie is probably about halfway between Miami and Orlando. Is that fair to say, or closer to Orlando?
I'd say it's probably closer to Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, your typical work week, what did it look like?
I would work in usually 2 offices a day. I would start around 8 or 9 o'clock, work in one office till about 1 o'clock, and then I'd go to another office and I'd piggyback it. I'd try to be in another office that was in the same vicinity as the first office, and I'd just usually start there around 1:30. I'd have it where it's only a 5 or 10 minute drive to the second office. I would tell them I could stay as late as you need. And then when people had emergencies, which when you work in 30 offices, there's always someone that has an issue. I would come into their office. I would just say, just have an assistant stay. And when I got done with that second office, if it was 8 o'clock, 8:30, I would still go in and I'd work in the third office. So it was almost 2 offices on most days. And I would say 20% and 30% of the time there was a third office.
How many days a week did you work? And again, we're talking about the 2000.
So if you know anything about how he graduated from dental school, he was flunking out. And the rumor is, certainly hasn't been proven in court, but that he got the Weinsteins to get his diploma. And he didn't. So he was flunking out of dental school, and yet he's treating all these patients. If any of this is even a little true, I know he was moonlighting for a lot of different offices and didn't have a permanent office. Will tell you how many people he's treating. And, there's that call where he's like, yeah, someone gave us a bad review with their dental implants. Something terrible happened with them. And another call where he gave a patient a drug they were allergic to. I mean, you're surprised this didn't happen more often and that he wasn't sued into oblivion. Scary thinking there are these kind of doctors and dentists out there who slided on their family, if this is true. Family connections.
14 time frame.
I was working 6 days a week, and then I was still working 6 days a week.
Now,
sometimes every once in a while there'd be a big case, and my whole week was booked up, and the patient needed something, and it was hours, and I didn't have time, so an office would open up on Sunday, and I would go in on Sunday and do the work.
For the most part, in your job working in these offices, what form of payment were you paid mostly in? Was it cash or some other form of payment?
The offices would always pay me an office check.
Now, were you ever paid in cash from these offices?
I wasn't paid from the offices that I work for in cash, but if I was doing a work on like one of the assistants in the office or a friend of the dentist, and the dentist didn't want any money to come to him, and I was doing it as a favor, I would say, just go ahead and pay me in cash for the materials. And then the materials were expensive. Sometimes they were $100, sometimes it was $1,000. And then but the dentist didn't want to take any of the money from that person. So he was like, I'm removing myself from the situation. So the person would pay me the cash just for the materials for the work that I did on them. And that was really just when I was doing favors, and it was sporadic. Sometimes more than other, depends on the month.
By the way, backtracking a little bit, growing up, what profession was your dad in?
Right. Is that his excuse for why he had all that cash, was from doing dental favors for people? He thought that one up in jail. I just, so I'll just do it for the cost of the materials. I'd love that. I'd love to get a dentist who actually knew what he was doing. Not Charlie, please. Just pay me for the cost of the materials. Just pay me for what I paid for these materials. No problem. Not my time or labor, as I'm staying hours to do these procedures. And you've had dental work, or extensive dental work. You know how long it takes. I just did it. My cost of my time, and forget my $2,000 in student loans. I don't need to pay that off. Just pay me what it costs because I'm such a good guy. It's crazy.
My dad was a general dentist.
And did your mom work growing up when you grew up?
She had 3 kids, and she still worked as a substitute teacher, where she would come in sporadically, but she wasn't working full time after she had the 3 of us.
Did there come a time where she worked in your dad's dental practice?
Yeah, I would say probably after the kids went to college, or maybe probably towards the end of high school, college. My mom came in and was doing front desk work and helping my dad out.
And what other roles did she have in the office?
She did the bookkeeping. She helped me with all my financial stuff, as far as like paying insurances, making stuff with anything that was due at a certain time, licenses. She paid salaries at the office, and then also did front desk with Erica.
All right. Let's talk about the Adelson Institute. When you became this traveling periodontist, were one of the places that you traveled to your dad's dental practice?
Yes.
How often did you work at the Adelson Institute?
I would work at my dad's office. I would say every 4 to 6 weeks, and I would piggyback it. There was another office that I worked at every 2 weeks that was in the same plaza as my dad's. So I would finish there usually about 4 o'clock, and then I'd go into my office, and then I'd start working there at 4:15, and I'd stay as late as I needed to. 10, 11 o'clock.
Do you remember what the full name of the practice was called?
Well, originally, or when we changed it to?
Well, let's start with what you changed it to.
Okay. Well, when I graduated my residency in periodontics. I thought since I was joining my dad's practice and it was now going to have a periodontist there, I thought we'd rename the practice and give it a fancy name. So we called it we copyrighted the Adelson Institute for Implants and Aesthetic Dentistry.
Okay. Now, growing up, did it have that name?
No.
Speaking of the Adelson Institute of Aesthetic Dentistry, I think this would be a good time to take a short break with a little commercial from the Adelson Institute. Do I still have it? Yeah. Okay. Of commercial dentistry. Shall we take a quick break?
What I enjoy most about our practice is restoring a person's smile. That often changes their personality and gives them a more positive outlook on life. Our practice uses the most modern dental technology, from rotary endodontics, computer-generated ceramic restorations, digital radiographs, intraoral photography, and of course, we use nitrous oxide and oral sedation for the highest level of patient comfort and relaxation.
My name is Dr. Charlie Adelson, and I am a periodontist, owner, and co-partner with my father, Dr. Harvey Adelson, who's a cosmetic dentist. What I love about what I do is being able to restore people's smiles and change the way they chew, change the way they live, and change their self-esteem and how they think about themselves on a daily basis. When a patient comes to my office, they're being treated like family, and it's also being a team approach where the hygienist, the cosmetic dentist, and the periodontist are all working together to give them the optimal result.
My name is Jennifer Catchill. I've been coming here for about 10 years. My experiences have been very positive. The staff is very professional. I came here 10 years ago to get my veneers put on, and I've been absolutely thrilled with the results. And I can't say how wonderful and professional the staff has just been. They've been really, really caring and just amazing. I would definitely recommend this place to others. I have actually recommended for people to come here. My husband has come here as well.
My name is Clint Stevenson. I've been coming to Dr. Adelson's office for about 5.5 years now. They've been phenomenal. I'm never a big fan of the dentist, but ever since I got introduced to this office, great staff, very friendly, and I always feel like I'm taken care of well. Very professional. Every time I come here, I feel like I get the foremost from their attention from the staff, and Dr. Adelson is himself as well. So it's a great experience every time I come. I look forward to it as well. I highly recommend them.
Okay, so that was from Murder by Maestro, pulled that up. He's the master at finding things like that. So if you've seen that on anyone's channel, it's from Murder by Maestro, found it first. It's the Adelson Institute ad. We needed to take a break from Charlie and his overwhelming arrogance. It's hard to take all at once. We're going to have to take frequent breaks to get it through. You'll see the audience clearing out as this goes on, but I think it's worth a listen before Donna's trial because it will give us an idea of how Donna's going to approach her defense, because, and this is one of the reasons why I think that the state is taking Charlie Adelson as their witness, so that if Donna takes some kind of Charlie Adelson defense 2.0, meaning I was just funding my son's extortion, which I think is the only way to do it. She may come up with a whole new surprise defense. We know Rashbaum loves surprise defenses. I won't be surprised if he does. But the state is taking Charlie Adelson and paying the money to have him come down so he can tell his story, his bogus story that no jury believed. He was convicted in under 2.5 hours, that he was extorted by Katie, et cetera, that they killed Dan Markel on spec, and then extorted him for money through Katie. It's absurd. So if Donna piggybacks on that, they will have already killed Charlie Adelson as a witness in areas of credibility before he can ever be really used for the defense. So because remember, the prosecution's case comes first, then the defense. You're a little bit more limited in the kind of questions you can ask on direct, but I think they'll have no problem totally demolishing his credibility on direct. I think it's such a boss move. In fact, I did a whole episode called Georgia Cappleman's Boss Move.
No. It was just a plain old dental practice, right?
Yeah, it was just my dad and his 3 employees.
How many people worked at the Adelson Institute?
There was Erica Johnson, Clarissa. Erica was the front desk. Clarissa was my dad's assistant since 1979 until he retired 2 years ago. And then Amy was the hygienist. And then my mom when she would be there.
And your mom controlled the checkbook?
Yeah, she handled that stuff.
Who did all the billing for the practice?
My mom and Erica.
Thank you, Starkwork. These super chats really allow me to do these live streams, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Billing.
How many dentists were in the practice?
Just one dentist, just my dad.
Did there come a time when you bought the practice from your dad?
Yeah, my dad was going to sell the practice, and I thought it would be a good idea for me to buy it, and I thought maybe I'd run it and it would be something that I would always have. But I didn't like the idea of it being sold, so I bought it from my dad when he wanted to slow down in 2012.
During the time period of 2014, who owned the practice?
In 14, I was the owner of the practice.
Okay. Now, during the time frame of the wires in 2016, who owned the practice?
I had sold it back to my dad in 2015.
Why did you sell it back to your dad?
Because I didn't have any time to run it. And even though I bought it, nothing had changed. My dad was still the same dentist that was there. My mom was still the same person doing the books, and they were spending all their time running it. And I was so busy with my traveling periodontics, I didn't have time to dedicate to it, and it really wasn't financially, it wasn't feasible.
Isn't that what all periodontists dream of, being a traveling periodontist? What does he mean he didn't have time to run it? Donna ran that thing. What do you mean he didn't have time to run it? Love to know the real reason. I'm sure it's some criminal, slightly dodgy criminal, in my opinion. Don't sue me, Rashbaum. Thing, moving it from owner to owner, tax dodge, something.
And there wasn't a benefit.
I want to talk about cash a little bit. Do you like to collect cash?
I always have, yes.
Why?
I like it probably goes back to when I was a kid. I mean, I get $1 a week allowance, and I would save it up, and I just like the feeling of looking at it. I'd rather look at it than put it in the bank. So whenever I had cash, I always saved it up.
Now, were there several ways that you accumulated cash?
Yes, there was.
Did you have a real estate business, or some real estate in 2014?
In 14, yes.
Okay. And would you accumulate cash through this business?
There was some cash that came in through that, yes.
Did you rent out dock space behind your house?
Yeah, I rented out my dock space behind my house since 2006, and it's been rented ever since.
And how would you be paid?
I just love to gaze lovingly into my pile of cash's stapled money's eyes before I went to sleep at night. It was just a habit I did ever since I was a kid. It's so odd. They had a million schemes. This family. Talk to Murder by Maestro. He really did a deep dive into all the things that they did, but one of them had to do with lawsuits and buying lawsuits, civil suits, money for civil suits, funding civil suits with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He had a million schemes, and you can hear him talking about how with his father, how he should invest and how he should. They knew all the loopholes.
Paid for that dock space.
The guy would come down once a year, and he would pay me in cash for the year.
Were there other ways that you would accumulate cash over the years?
From whenever I did work on someone as a favor, and they were just paying me for the materials, I got paid in cash on that. And probably the biggest source of cash through the years is every time I went out, every chance I could, I used my credit card to build up the airline miles, and I'd always pay the tab, and whoever was there would just give me the cash, and it added up over the years. I've done that 20 years.
And once you had this cash, what would you do with it?
Whenever I had $1,000, I would staple it, and it was a packet. So I stapled it because I was just being saved. I wasn't spending it. And I was always using my credit card, so the cash built up.
Where would you put the cash?
I put it in my safe.
When you, I'm going to go back to your business a little bit. When you started your business, did you make a lot of money the first couple years?
No. I mean, it took off pretty quick, but it wasn't where it was in 13, 14, or 15.
By 2011, approximately, how much money were you making?
I was probably making $350 a year.
And what did your income look like in the 2014 range?
14, I made between, I think, around 850 to 900,000.
What were your best years financially?
13, 14, and 15.
Have you ever been married?
No.
In the time frame of 2013-14, did you have any kids?
Back then, I didn't have my son.
During this 2000.
So that gives us like a little insight if that were really his best years, right before, as he's planning this murder. He's really, as we say in New York City, feeling himself. He's making more money than he's ever made. He's feeling the height of his financial power. And for Adelson's financial power, status, being able to buy and lord your money over people, have that power, is everything. And this gives you a little insight into his mindset as to why he thought he could pull off this murder with such a close connection to him. I mean, Katie's, come on, right? His girlfriend, then barely ex-girlfriend. I mean, I know he says he had a lot of girlfriends, and he did, and a lot of ex-girlfriends, but I mean, he's 1 degree of separation away from the killer, right? Or 2? Was that 1 or 2? What does that make? It's 1 away. Katie to the killer. I mean, why did they think they could pull this off? I have no idea. I guess they're arrogant. They're an arrogant criminal family. What can you say?
2013, 2014 time frame. How would you succinctly describe your lifestyle?
Work came first. I worked my whole life to get to where I was. So I wasn't turning any work down, and I was single. So I worked. I'd go to the gym late at night, and I'd probably go out 1 night a week, usually on a Saturday night is when I'd go out.
Now, do you have any children now?
I've got 1 son.
How old?
5.
I want to talk to you about your relationship with your parents as an adult. Fair to say you're close with your mom and dad?
Yes.
As an adult, how often would you talk with your mom and dad?
I would talk to my mom more often, a lot more often, just because my dad was always working. But I talk to my mom every day.
Once a day or multiple times?
At least once a day, but most likely probably twice a day, because there was always usually one thing was a personal thing and one thing was something having to do with the office or scheduling or something like that.
During the 2014 timeframe when you owned the office, did your mom work for you?
You could say that. Yeah.
Did she control the books?
She wrote the checks. Yeah, they had the checkbook at the house.
Now, was there any?
Right. There's something he's going to testify about. Mom wrote the checks. Very bad for Donna. She's funding all this. You have Katie's working at your office, but she's not really working at your office. What did you think when you were arranging for her to get all these paychecks? She has to take the stand. I know they're deposing everyone and their mother. So if you haven't been following it, the motions that have been put out by the defense are to get any mention of Donna's fleeing to a non-extradition country. She was fleeing to Vietnam by way of Dubai, also a non-extradition country. So even if she made it to Dubai, she'd be okay. Ridiculous. I don't think that will be thrown out. The state wants any mention of Luis Rivera's connection with the Latin Kings thrown out, but that's not going to happen either. So I think both of those are going to not get sustained. Go their way. So I think Donna's got to testify in this. And the other thing in Donna's case, that they want to move it to a smaller courtroom. Am I forgetting anything that's major in this? Just because Dan Rashbaum watched Karen Reed's trial, and that's what the big lawyers did for Karen Reed, and keep all the supporters of Dan Markel, which there are. The true crime community is pretty much unified, as much as I've ever seen in any case, behind the Markel family. And they want to keep that out of the courtroom. But I think it'll make a circus if they move it to a smaller courtroom. It will be even crazier, because those tickets, they'll get line sitters and there'll be lotteries to get in, and it'll just be a madhouse for the few seats in the courtroom. And you don't want to start creating that kind of chaos for the people that work in the courtroom. I hope that Judge Everett does not sustain that, give the defense that motion, because that would be ridiculous to move it to a smaller courtroom.
Any particular time that you would talk to your mom more often than other times?
Yeah, in the morning driving into work, I'd call my mom, and usually on the way home from work, I'd call them. Just depends on how long the drive was, really.
How involved was your mom in your life?
Business-wise, very involved, because she was running the office. Personal-wise, I would tell them things and keep them up to date with stuff and my life. But it was my life. I did whatever I wanted to do.
We're going to get to this later, but how involved was your mom in your sister's life?
I think she was more involved. I think my sister involved my mom maybe more. And it just depends on different issues.
I want to talk a little bit about your sister, Wendy. As adults, before she married Professor Markel, how often would you talk with her?
I'd call my sister, I'd say about every 10 days or so we'd talk. I'd call her, but she was busy and she wasn't really good with the phone. So I would I would call her, and she would always take a day or two to call me back. I spoke to her half the time when I called. Half the time she didn't pick up.
How often would you see her, again, pre-marriage? How often would you see your sister?
Not a lot. In 1995, I left to go to college. In 97, she left to go to college up in Boston. So it was pretty much, I would say, holidays, like every 3-4 months, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, sometimes during the summer. So maybe 3-4 times a year I see her.
There came a time when Wendy started dating Professor Markel, right?
Yes.
Do you remember when you first met him?
I do. I think he was in town, and I remember all of us going out to lunch. I think we went to a deli.
What did you think of him?
I thought he was a nice guy. I mean, he kind of seemed like all my other sister's boyfriends she's had in the past. I've never really had much in common with them. And she kind of seemed like the rest of them, but I that was pretty much it.
Now, after they got married, what was your relationship like with Professor Markel?
It was the same as before they got married. I mean, we texted each other on our birthdays. I don't think we ever really called each other or hung out. I mean, I would just see him when he came over to the house with my sister.
And how often would you see?
I mean, isn't that a ringing endorsement? He seemed like all the rest of Wendy's boyfriends. I mean, between Wendy saying that he meant well and he seemed like all the rest of Wendy's boyfriends, I mean, they can barely contain their absolute disgust and hatred of Dan Markel. Even when according to him, his whole life depends on it. His whole life depends on this testimony coming off well. The nicest thing he can say is he seemed like everyone else that Wendy dates. Revolting.
Him and your sister?
I would say twice a year, maybe, or roughly around there, maybe 3 times a year.
In the years that Professor Markel and your sister were married and living in Tallahassee, how often did you come to Tallahassee?
I'd only been to Tallahassee. I was there twice, I believe, when her children were born. And then once when I was working in Alabama, I had a research fellowship, and I was passing through Tallahassee. I spent the night with them, and I saw them that time too.
When Professor Markel and your sister were married, did you still communicate with your sister about the same amount of time?
It may have been a little less, because I remember when she had kids, I mean, she had even less time. So I probably spoke to her. I'd call her, and then probably more times than not, she didn't pick up the phone. And then I'd get a call back a couple of days later. So it was pretty similar.
Did there come a time when you became aware that Wendy and Professor Markel were having marital issues?
Yes.
What did you learn?
I took my sister out to dinner when she had come to town, and we went to the Melting Pot. And I remember her telling me that they were having issues, and it was pretty serious.
Did she tell you that they were going through marriage counseling?
Yeah, that's when I found out. And I guess that's what I was going to say, is like, if you tried to work things out. And that's when I found out that they had been in counseling for 6 months. I didn't know about it before.
Now, what were some of the issues, if you remember, that she told you they were having?
He was becoming very, very religious. There was becoming issues with diet and how she was cooking in the house. She wasn't really respectful he wasn't really respectful of her career. He would belittle her. He obviously seemed like he lost his eye for her, and she seemed like she'd lost his eye for him, and she wasn't happy.
Now, did she complain about violence or danger or anything like that?
Never.
Did she complain that he was not a good father?
No, he was very attentive to his sons.
Did you learn?
What I don't understand is, according to when I interviewed Ruth Markel, that's how I got interested in this case. Is I got a email from Ruth Markel's publicist about her book. I had her on, as I've had so many, anyone who's, I like to platform the victim's voice on this channel. And so I didn't know about this case at all. So I heard about it through Ruth, and what she said in that interview, you can find it on my channel on the videos, is that they were keeping vegetarian. So when they got married, if you don't know, Wendy didn't get kosher food for the wedding. So Dan couldn't eat, and neither could any of the rabbi. The rabbi just left in disgust, is what I've heard about it. And it was a real issue, what do you say? I think they thought they picked him out because he was Jewish on J-date, knew he kept kosher, didn't have kosher food at the wedding. Then I guess Wendy relented and ate vegetarian. And then even when she's pregnant and raising kids, it's kind of okay. But then when you decide to keep kosher or kosher kitchen is a real demand. I'm not saying that it's not. And I sympathize with anyone who it's not like just being vegetarian. You have to be really on board to want to keep a kosher kitchen and eat kosher. But she had to know that was a possibility when she married him. What did she think? She was just going to eat vegetarian at home for the rest of her life? And then with the kids? I mean, she did break up with him beforehand. So I just would love to know the thinking. I think Abigail Schreier says it was a friend of Dan Markel's and knew Wendy too from law school. Said that the way that Dan Markel saw obstacles like that were just sort of like challenges to be overcome, not impediments to a happy marriage. This is something that would be really hard to work out if one person wanted to keep kosher and one didn't. And then you have kids and it's very much like Donna. There's all these issues around food. We've seen Donna have issues over food and her fork and how she eats food and water and ordering. And I'm sure she was part of ordering the food for the wedding. It's a metaphor for control, any kind of issues around food. So odd. I don't know how they thought this was going to work.
Learn at some point that your sister was going to file for divorce.
Okay.
I did.
And when you heard that she was going to file for divorce, how did you feel?
I felt bad for her. I mean, she was sad. I mean, no one goes to get married to get divorced. But she seemed like she spent 6 months in therapy with him, and it didn't change anything how she felt, and he didn't change how he was. And I said, listen, the kids need to grow up in a happy household. Like, they can't have fighting. They can't have a miserable mom who's unhappy. You need to have the kids are better off growing up in two separate households where there's positive environment instead of negative.
Did your sister seem angry to you?
No, she seemed sad.
How involved were you with the divorce proceeding?
Oh my gosh, no wonder. Look, you can already see the people starting to clear out. I'm going to try to move forward a little bit. A little bit. Boy, we're like losing people. It's my audience is looking like the like the courtroom. It's like, how much of this can we take? I'm going to move forward a little bit into this. See if we can get to the good part. Can we get to the murder part? To the murder? The time when you and Donna planned a murder? Charlie, can we get to that part? Please? This is getting ridiculous.
And it would be, I'd be driving in the car talking to my mom. She would relay the latest that my sister told her, and then she'd be telling me. And that's when I would think about it. But I mean, I never for a second was at work thinking about it or doing activities that I enjoyed, thinking about it. When I wake up in the morning, I never thought about it.
Were you panicked at all about it? Were you concerned that your sister was going to be disbarred? Anything like that? Was that a big issue for you?
No, I mean, that was a nonsense threat.
When you would learn about things, though, would you talk to them, talk about what was going on to others?
Yeah, I did talk a lot. And
Why would you, considering your sister's divorce wasn't, and her issues with Professor Markel weren't a huge part of your life, as you've testified, why would you be talking about it to others?
one, I talked a lot.
How would it come up?
And it would come up when I'd be sitting at the dinner table and I'd hear this crazy story that my mom told me from earlier that day. And I guess it's more interesting than talking about teeth. So I would sit there and I'd share things with my girlfriend or friends, and I'd relay stories.
By the way, during this time period, and now I'm talking about late 13, second half of 13 and 14, were you still speaking with your sister about the same amount or more?
I would say it's probably about the same, but every 10 days or so we talk.
Did you travel to Tallahassee to check on her after she filed for divorce? How many times did you come to Tallahassee during this time period?
Never. I think the last time I came to Tallahassee was 2011 or 2010.
Now, what was your understanding of how Wendy felt about the idea of staying in Tallahassee as time went on?
I think she understood that's what her life was going to be. I mean, she loved her job up here. She was getting excited about things. She was dating people. She was embarking on her new life in Tallahassee.
What was her, did there come a time when she won an award, and what do you remember about that?
I remember I was real proud of her. She wrote a book, and the book was selected by Florida State to be the mandatory reading for all incoming freshmen. And she was chosen to be the speaker to the incoming class. And that was to take place in August. And I know she was super excited about it, and we're all planning to come up there and be there for her.
Okay, I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about Catherine Magbanua.
Apparently that was something that Wendy was really angry about, according to Jeffrey Lacasse, that she, after Dan Markel's murder, got in the way of her giving her speech. And I think she still did accept that award. Or am I thinking of another thing, Murder by Maestro, another thing that I've shown on this channel? I think that was another thing, but that she couldn't give her speech and accept her award. Shown another public event that she showed up for after Dan Markel's murder in I believe, in the Miami area.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Take your time.
Turn back down. How did you first meet Catherine Magbanua?
I met Katie in the summer of 2013. She started working the front desk of the dental office that I worked at.
And what was that dental office? Where was it?
The name of the office was Sophie Dental, and it was in South Beach.
What did she do for the dental office?
She was the front desk.
She was the front desk, and she did a little extortion on the side. She was our extortion woman. We went to her for extortions.
And office manager for the office.
How often would you work in that office?
I was there say every 3 weeks I was there for half a day every 3 weeks.
Was that office a big generator of income for you?
It was one of my better offices, yeah.
Now, you said you met her in July 2013. When did you first go out with her?
We first went out, it would have been first week of October, around October 10th.
And who initially pursued who?
I pursued her.
Why did you ask her out?
Katie was really cute. She was friendly. She went to the same, she actually graduated from UCF also, different time, but she graduated from there. She was a really smart girl. I mean, she was extremely smart and witty, and that's why I pursued her.
Once you went out with her, did you learn that she had 2 kids?
I did.
Now, initially, did you learn anything about her ex-husband?
No, the only thing I knew is that she'd been with somebody for about 10 years and that she was now single.
After you dated her a couple times, what did you like about her?
Well, and aside from the initial things, what attracted me to her was she had a very busy life also. And my life was so busy, it was hard for me to be in a relationship where someone wanted to go have dinner at 5 o'clock and hang out with me a couple days a week. So she was working full time, had 2 kids. So she was fine seeing me once or twice a week.
Isn't that every woman's dream? What do you love about me? I love that you're busy, that you only demand to see me once or twice a week. Isn't that every woman's fantasy?
And we both had very little time.
Now, you said that your first date was sometime in early October 2013.
Yeah, it wasn't even a real date. We just went and had dinner. There's a restaurant in the building, and we finished late. And I said, "You want to grab dinner?" We ate at the building.
Did you ask her just 2 weeks later if she could find someone to kill Professor Markel?
No, not at all.
Did you have a Halloween party with her or go trick-or-treating with her, and after the party say, hey, do you know anyone who can take care of my ex-brother-in-law for me?
No, absolutely.
No, what I said to Katie was, could anyone bill Professor Dan Markel? Because I had done some of that, pro bono dentist work that I was famous for. It was totally misunderstood. Bill, kill, murder, schmurder. What's one? I need a palate cleanser, guys. I need a Charlie Adelson palate cleanser. I will be back. I'm going to take a minute break. I'll be back 1 minute. More with Charlie Adelson and his testimony where it's getting good. We're getting finally into the murder part. Be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
We don't take a break. Grab a snack or maybe a glass of wine. Roberta will be back in no time. This podcast is listener supported, so smash that like button and subscribe or become a patron for exclusive content if you are so inclined. Have something to say? Shoot Roberta a super chat. She will do her best to read it all air without delay. Now Roberta's back and ready to put the true back in true crime. Here's Roberta.
Okay, we are back. If you're just tuning in, we're watching Charlie Adelson's direct testimony in his trial for the murder of Dan Markel. Talked earlier about Donna Adelson and speculated because she recently had a jail infraction where she demanded a chair while she was on the phone. They told her they couldn't give her a chair because it would be unfair to all the inmates. She doesn't get special treatment. She had a fit, said she was telling her lawyer. This was for a ridiculously short phone call. I think it was, 8 minutes? 6 minutes? 8 minutes? 8 minutes. I mean, come on. So we speculated earlier about Donna possibly pulling a Harvey Weinstein, showing up in a wheelchair, using her age, which is one of their only sympathetic qualities, is that she's a grandmother and more elderly, hoping maybe the jury won't want to send her to prison because she is a grandmother, and that they can forget that she was a conspirator, allegedly, and has yet to be proven in a court of law. She is accused of being a conspirator in the murder of Dan Markel, along with her son, Charlie Adelson, who was convicted. Catherine McManawa was convicted as the middle woman. Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia were both convicted. Sigfredo was given a life sentence, Katie a life sentence, Charlie a life sentence, and Luis Rivera made a deal with the state and got 12 years. Which he's doing concurrently with another gang-related crime he got convicted of.
Now, back to the relationship. Over time, did it become more serious?
Over time, in the beginning, it's always like you're just trying to see who each other is. And then as time went on, she wanted to get more serious. I'd say probably by the springtime, by probably around March, she started asking me.
Now, did you consider her to be your girlfriend, though?
She was my girlfriend, yeah.
Did you consider yourself to be exclusive?
After the first 3 months together, yeah, for sure.
Did you ever see a possibility of marriage with her?
No, I didn't.
During the time that you dated her, how often, and let's be clear, we're talking about now the beginning of 2014.
Right.
So let's keep it far away from July. During the time that you dated her, how often would you communicate with her?
We talked every day.
When would you talk to her?
I'd call her when I was in the car driving to work. We text throughout the day, and then I'd always talk to her at night time.
Where was she living at the time?
She was living in North Miami.
And again, you were living in the same place in Fort Lauderdale?
Same house in Fort Lauderdale, yeah.
How often would you see her?
I would see her once a week. Sometimes every once in a while it would be twice, but I would say more often once than twice.
And when you saw her, what would you typically do?
We'd go to dinner, hang out, watch a movie, hang out at my house.
Did you have any relationship with her children?
No, I met her children on one occasion, maybe twice, but definitely no more than twice.
Did she go to family events with you?
She did meet my family a couple times, yeah.
She met your sister how many times, if you recall?
2 times.
And how many times do you think she might have met your parents?
I'd say maybe around 8 times, 8 or 9 times.
Was she a patient of your dad's?
Yes, she was.
We're going to get into this in more detail later, but let's be clear right now. Did Catherine Magbanua ever work for your dad or for you at the Adelson Institute?
No, never.
Now, I think you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it's
You guys see Patty in the back there, right behind Dan Rashbaum, moving her head from left to right. It's fancy fiction. Patty. Anyone else? Phil Markel. Anyone else recognize anyone in the gallery?
time went on in 2014. Did she want to be more serious?
Yeah.
And
I see Sunny Tanner peeking her eye. Where is Sunny Tanner? She's MIA. I haven't seen her around.
what did you think about that?
I liked the way it was. I mean, it was good in the beginning. My life, I wasn't looking to change it. I was still in that workaholic mode. But she started asking me, what are we? What are we doing?
At the time that you met her, and I want to talk a little bit about your knowledge of
What as they start talking about the murder, here comes the incessant blinking.
Secreto Garcia now. At the time that you met her, to your knowledge, she was single, right?
Yes.
And I think you testified that initially you didn't learn anything about her ex.
Nothing other than she was completely single. She was done with him.
I want to show you defense exhibit. It's not in evidence.
Is that Judge Edford doing? Are you guys bored? I mean, I kind of feel like
Ignition sequence start.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
0.
What's new, Charlie? You know that Charlie Stride. Charlie was the first rebel. Charlie, the original. You fallen in love, Charlie? Which Charlie's your Charlie? You gotta smell him yourself. Then decide what kind of Charlie you are.
Kinda young, kinda now, Charlie. Kinda free, kinda wild, Charlie.
Sorry, Charlie.
Sorry, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie. Come on.
Now the world belongs to Charlie.
Charlie!
Guidance is internal. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. It feels good.
that's the society page's genius. But I kind of feel like meh, Charlie. Oh, let me know. I've watched maybe a little bit more of this, but we've been going for quite some time.
Yeah, Coach, Your Honor.
You may.
Do you guys remember how
I'm showing
packed
you
this
what's
courtroom
marked
was?
for identification purposes as Defense Exhibit 34. Please take a look at it. Are these text messages between you and Catherine Magbanua on November 27th at 2:13?
Yes, they are.
Judge, I'd move in Defense Exhibit 34 at this time.
Response?
Hearsay, Your Honor.
Please approach.
All right, let's move past as quickly as we can past this nonsense. Still going?
True and correct reflection of your messages on November 27th, 2013?
Yes, they are.
Judge, I'd move in Exhibit 34 at this time.
Any further objection?
No, Your Honor.
They are admitted at this time.
May I publish?
You may.
Now, you see the timing is in military time, so it says November 27th at 13:42. We can agree that's 1:42.
Yes.
Katie says, my ex knows about you. I'm pretty sure I know how he knew because he even knows your name. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And you say, do I know him from my past? You see that?
Yes, I do.
What are you asking Katie here?
I have no idea who her ex is. And she's saying he knows me. So I'm saying, do I know him?
And that's it.
She doesn't know, your ex knows me. Do I know him? He doesn't know who Sigfredo is?
In late November 2013, right?
Yes.
That's after 1 month almost after Halloween, correct?
Yes.
Now, as time went on, did you learn more about her ex?
In the springtime, I did.
In February, was there an incident with Katie and her ex that you recall?
Yeah.
So this is something I don't believe. I believe this was made up to give a reason. Katie tells a totally different version of this story, a reason why Sigfredo called Harvey's directly. I just don't believe this story.
I remember her coming over my house, and she was pretty upset. She had a mark on her neck. They'd gotten into an altercation, and he ripped a necklace that he'd given her off her neck. And she was crying, and she was all upset.
How did you react?
She could tell I was upset. I mean,
My apologies. I thought we were going to get the water skis song and dance.
someone just roughed her up, and she could tell I was upset. And she said, "Don't do anything." She goes, "He will kill you. He will kick your ass. You don't stand a chance."
Now, why did you continue?
Now, this is something that Georgia picks up on. The fact, and this is what a really good attorney will do. He said, roughed her up. And this is something Georgia picks up on and asks him about in Cross. You said roughed up. That's funny because when you asked Katie, when you were shopping for Hitman, if she knew anyone who could rough someone up, because I guess it's a little off-putting to ask point blank, do you know someone who could murder my brother-in-law for me? I need someone to murder my brother-in-law. Instead, he asked, do you know someone who could rough somebody up? Which again furthers my theory that they never talk about anything really directly, even amongst themselves. And he backtracks and says, oh, what does he say? He's like, he kind of just downplays it, roughs up. I never asked her whether you could rough someone up. I just use it every day in my everyday language. But the jury would have taken note of that was part of his vocabulary. And it is not an extensive vocabulary. He uses pretty much the same kind of language to describe everything.
Continue to date her after this?
I didn't take that as a threat to me. I just took it as she's got a crazy ex-boyfriend that wants her back, and she's got 2 kids with him, and it wasn't a threat. I didn't feel like he was threatening me. She just was like, it's a part of her life that I wasn't going to hold against her.
I want to show you a couple other texts related to your relationship with Miss Magbanawa in
Charlie Adelson, the traveling periodontist who takes tourism trips to have relations with underage girls, won't hold it against Katie that she got into an altercation with Sigfredo. Isn't that nice of him?
January, February, and March of 14. And these will be defendants exhibits 35, 36, and 37. And I'll give a copy to the governor.
I just want to make it smaller. So Donna said all the chat were saying he's so believable. I bet he's backing out. He looks sick. He's freaking. He looks paler than usual. He should fix his tie. He have confirmed he will testify. Oh my God, he looks awful. Can't wait until the state nails him. This is all the incredibly supportive comments that were coming in while he was testifying, while he was doing a 95 job out of 100. Just FYI.
I might have handed you one as well. The January text is 35. The February text is 36. And the March 24th text, do you have that one?
Yes.
Is 37.
I have March 15th.
That's a different one. There you go. May I approach, Your Honor?
Look at Patty dodging her head in and out of that from behind that guy. It's so funny. With this shaved side of the head, Patty dodging her head back and forth. Just check this out. Left side of your screen.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Just put it aside. That's 36. And that's 37. Can you take a look at these items? Do you recognize these text messages?
Yes, I do.
Are they accurate reflections of your text messages?
They are, yes.
I would move these exhibits into evidence now, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Here's Your Honor. I'm stored here in a minute.
You can show me a copy of the exhibits.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is like Dan Rashbaum and his folders. Can he just get these exhibits straight? I mean, I know there's a lot of them, but come on.
Yeah, Coach.
It's the longest.
Ruled as to hearsay, you may continue with your examination.
Sidebar in recent history. We're almost near the end, guys.
So let's talk about Defense Exhibit 35.
Sure.
A text from January 19, 2014. And in this exchange, what is Miss Magbanawa asking you about?
She asked me if I wanted things to be different, and she was saying how much she missed me.
And did you want things to be different at this point in time?
No, I wanted things to stay the way they were from when we just started dating.
Now, if you turn to Defense Exhibit 36, text messages from February 5th, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
What is she asking you? What does she start by asking you about? And you don't have to read it. Just tell the jury generally what she's asking you about. What is she concerned about?
She's asking if I'm talking to a bunch of other girls.
And what do you tell her in response generally?
I say, no, I'm not.
And again, in this text message, she's asking you whether she's telling you that she wants more, right?
Yeah.
And how do you respond?
I ask her, are you thinking about getting back with your ex?
And then what do you say after that?
Oh, yeah. I say, you're the coolest and most fun girl, that I'm always happy when I'm around. And then I said, I know it's not easy, and I think we're doing a good job at not rushing things. So,
And what were you trying to tell Miss Magbanawa in this text message?
I was trying to say, I like you and I have a good time hanging out with you, but I don't want to rush things.
Now, moving to text messages in March of 2014. Ms. Magbanawa texts you, you've mentioned me to your mom, and you say yes, and she says, I love you. Aw, baby. Why was this a big deal to her?
I guess when I'd spoken to her, I brought up that I'd mentioned her to my mom, and she thought I was making things more serious. So I think she got excited over that.
Okay, you can put those aside.
I'm going to object regarding Defense Exhibit 37 and ask for best evidence that it be published to the jury.
I'll sustain on best evidence grounds. Please publish Defense 37. Members of the jury get to reach your own conclusions as to the context of the statements.
Okay, let's publish it to the jury and see if it says what I said.
I'm going to object that you're trying to feed the jury
March
total
24th
nonsense.
At 12:17. Do you see she texts you and says, "You've mentioned me to your mom"?
Yes.
Do you see that you respond, yes?
Yes, I do.
Do you see that she responds, "That made me so happy"?
Yeah, she took it the wrong way.
Any other clarification, Your Honor? Is it fair to say that she was excited that you had mentioned her to your mom?
Yeah, she was happy. I mean, she got overly excited. I wasn't expecting that.
Now,
Yeah, I was just talking to my mom about the murder. The murder. We were just talking about the murder. Charlie and I were just talking about the murder together. Nothing for Katie to get very excited about. It was nothing. It was nothing. Thank you, Donna.
in the early summer of 2014, what were you telling your friends about your relationship with Catherine Magbanua?
Objection, relevance.
Sustain. Please lay a foundation if you can.
Was your relationship coming to an end in the summer of 2014?
Yes, she wanted more, and I didn't want anything more.
And were you communicating that to friends?
Yes, I was.
I want to talk to you about a dinner on March 11th, 2014, a Yardbird dinner. One moment, Your Honor.
Take your time.
At dinner.
Yes, I do.
Do you recall going to that dinner?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember who was the dinner with?
I met Katie down in Miami on Lincoln Road, and my sister was in town, and I was already working down there. I remember I was in my scrubs, and my sister came and she brought the guy that she just started dating, who was Jeff Lacoste.
Do you recall where you sat?
Yeah, we sat outside the restaurant. There was a few tables set up on the sidewalk, and it was the four of us sitting there.
Did you know that you were being watched?
No, not at all.
Did you know that Sigfredo Garcia was thinking about killing you that night?
No, not at all.
Now, this is March 11th, 2014, right?
Yes.
Are we all sorry that Sigfredo didn't go through with it that night? So he would have to sit through this long direct. Yes.
During the dinner, do you recall discussions about ex-husbands between your sister and Catherine Magbanua?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall who initiated those discussions?
No, I don't.
Do you recall making a bad joke again at that dinner?
Yes.
And that's the same joke that we've already discussed.
Yeah, I did.
Now, after the dinner, who came back to your house?
My sister and Jeff Lacoste came back to my house.
What about Catherine Magbanua?
No, she went home to be with her kids.
And was it a normal night when your sister and Jeff Lacoste came back?
Yeah, but it's the first time I've ever had, I think, my sister and her boyfriend sleep over at my house. So but it was normal.
Anytime a defendant says it was normal, it means it was extremely not normal. Just FYI. It was normal. It never happened before. And if you listen to Jeffrey Lacasse's testimony, he said, here he was, he said he would never date a divorced mom with kids, and shows up with a divorced mom with kids, or single mother with kids and shows up with a single mother with kids. It's a little surprised at his choice there. And then poor Jeffrey Lacasse has to sleep over.
Did you ever have any conversations other than some text messages that Jeff Lacoste sent you with him after that night?
No, I never spoke to him again.
Did you know anything about a first attempted murder of Professor Markel in early June?
No.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about birthdays and your dad's birthday and a birthday present. And you may remember some text messages that the state showed during their case regarding wanting to talk to your... Give me 1 second.
I mean, how often does he say that? Give me 1 sec. Get your files together, Rashbaum.
Do you recall the state showing text messages where you're texting with your mom and she tells you that she can't talk right now, that she'll call you when she's alone, she's driving back and she's at a stop in Gainesville, and to erase the text message?
Yeah.
Do you recall what that is all about?
It was about my dad's birthday.
Who was your mom with at that stop at Gainesville?
She was with my dad, so she didn't want to talk in front of him.
And why didn't she want to talk in front of him?
Because it was a surprise. Originally, we were thinking about doing a cruise.
What was a surprise? That you were going to kill Professor Markel, or that you were going to have a surprise birthday party for your dad?
No, it was going to be his 70th birthday party.
And do you recall in that text message talking about a caterer?
Yes.
Now, you had discussed this caterer as far back as April and May with your mom, correct?
Yes.
And those are reflected in text messages as well, correct?
Yes, they are.
On June 5th, do you recall your mom texting you and asking you, don't forget to get information on the caterer?
Yes.
Now, what did you get your dad?
So was their plan just to get up here and just basically put the jury to sleep with boring questions, and then just have basically have Dan Rashbaum argue the conspiracy extortion defense, meaning the extortion defense, that I was extorted by Katie, and the first extortion and the second extortion, and that it was so confusing. It was too risky to really ask Charlie anything too much about it in direct, and just wait for Georgia to come tear it all to shreds and cross, because that seems to be the plan here. My mother was involved with me. I was moonlighted. I worked all the time. Just basically get the jury to like Charlie. I mean, that seems to be, when I'm looking at it now, I can understand because if you look at the comments, no one liked him. I mean, we all knew this, right? We all knew this. Is it going to come up? I guess not. But the chat isn't coming up for me now, but everybody's like, he's terrible. He looks green. He looks white. He looks exactly what I've always said. He looks terrible. Just to like him. So it makes more sense why Charlie and Donna were so obsessed in their jailhouse calls with Charlie and Donna saying you were so likable. Everybody loved you. Everybody said you were so likable. That's why it was so important for Charlie to be likable, because that's all the direct is likability. So if we're expecting something with Donna, I think what we can expect is, and you worked your way up to having a successful dental practice, and then you lost it all. We'll hear about the Ponzi scheme, and then you worked your way through it, and you worked with children, and you raised 3 kids. I wouldn't even be surprised if we're going to see some crying on the stand from Donna. And then just wait for Georgia to destroy Donna and Cross. I don't know what Alex Morris's plans are. I mean, that throws a wrench into it. We don't know what kind of lawyer he is, but we're near the end here, and we've hardly heard anything about the actual defense theory. It's all been about his work and his relationship with his mother and his sister. So 90% of it's been about Katie, and nothing really about the meat of his story, of what supposedly, shouldn't he be dying to get on the stand, tell the jury and everyone else what really happened to him?
And for his birthday gift.
I paid for the catering for the party.
And what type of catering was it?
It was a chef came to the party and they cooked paella and seafood, and then we had a bunch of desserts also and salads.
I'm showing you what's marked for identification purposes only as Defendant's Exhibit 43.
I did a deep dive into it, J Cash, the Ponzi scheme story, and I can't remember off the top of my head a lot about it, but it was a Ponzi scheme and they lost some money. They didn't, my recollection is they didn't lose everything, but they lost a good deal of money.
I'm showing you what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit 43. And these are a composite of all of your text messages between June 2nd, 2014 and June 7th, 2014. May I approach, Your Honor?
Okay.
Can you look through this and see if this is an accurate reflection of all your text messages during that period?
Yes, they are.
Judge, I would move in Defense Exhibit 43 at this point in time.
I'm going to need to review the exhibit. State, do you have any objections?
Yes, Your Honor. Hearsay and relevance.
Please bring me a copy of the exhibit. Going to take you back to the jury room. We will resume the testimony momentarily.
Okay, I think that's a good place to end it for tonight. I'm going to end, as I always do. I mean, that gives you an idea. It took me only rewatching the testimony yet again that I think that's their plan, is to really not get Donna tripped up in her made up story if she takes the stand, and then have whatever Georgia wants to approach her on a cross, rip it apart. Because whatever you bring up in direct is the prosecution can destroy in cross. So they really kept the story very close to what was already presented in evidence. So, I mean, as painful as it was to watch Charlie's cross, it was very informative in how Donna's going to do her defense. Keep her story, keep her to, don't bring in a lot of new elements, and keep it very vague. And let Dan Rashbaum make a lot of promises about the story they're going to hear in direct. We didn't really hear a lot about the extortion. No? That was all in cross. Okay. I'm going to end the way I usually do. We've been going for almost 3 hours, I think. 2.5 hours. From a letter from September 10th, 2019. Danny Markel was among my closest friends in Tallahassee, Florida. During the period that I lived there from 2004 to 2013, he was a brilliant man and a warm and generous human being. To this day, my daughter Madeline, now 9, my son Julian, now age 12, refer to Uncle Danny on the occasions when his name comes up. Having to explain to them what happened to him and to make sense of this terrible tragedy was an experience I hope my wife and I never have to repeat. Danny and I met through FSU, where I taught in the history department from 2004 to 2013. We shared academic and intellectual interests, both attending law school. Danny had done a master's degree in history at Cambridge with a renowned person in my field, and we knew numerous other people in common outside of Florida. We shared an interest in religion and in Israel, among other subjects, and we worked out at the same gym. But most importantly, we shared the simple pleasure of friendship. Reads simply, but I think he means simple. Although Christian, I, along with a great many Gentiles in Tallahassee, was a frequent guest at Danny's weekly Shabbat dinners, which overflowed with joy and generosity. He and his family were frequent guests at our home at 824 Tennyson Road. Our children played together, and indeed his boys were supposed to come over to the house to swim the weekend after he was killed. My wife was as fond of Danny as I was, and often when I think of him now, I see the two of them in the kitchen together preparing food and laughing. Danny had a terrific sense of humor. He doted on his children, and he was as fine and creative and intellect as I have had the pleasure to know. I write this with tears in my eyes, and indeed, I still find it difficult to speak of Danny without getting emotional. We left Tallahassee not long after his death, and although I love the city and its people, his murder has irrevocably tainted what are otherwise fond memories of our time there. This is just one of the many things Danny's killers have stolen, robbing the world not only of a beautiful soul, a faithful father, a beloved son, and a dear friend, but of a fount of joy that should be continuing to flow right now and for many years to come. Sincerely, Darren M. McMahon. He's a professor he was in 2019 at Mary Brismead Wheatlock professor of history. At Dartmouth College. So that's what I have for today. Please hit the thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Share this episode. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everyone who signed up for my Patreon. There's a new episode coming up soon. I'm working on it. And I will be back with another episode Tuesday at 6. Have a great night, everybody.